So, let's begin by looking at a rather fascinating document from 1983 by the US Army Intelligence and Security Command. It's called Analysis and Assessment of Gateway Process. And honestly, it stands as a pretty unique artifact in the study of consciousness. Authored by Lieutenant Colonel Wayne M. McDonnell, the report set out to provide a scientific framework for what's known as the Gateway Experience, a meditation and training program developed by the Monroe Institute. At the heart of this program is something called hemisync, or hemispheric synchronization, which uses audio binaural beats to induce altered states of consciousness. This, in turn, potentially leads to things like out-of-body experiences and remote viewing. In this discussion, we'll analyze the document's central arguments, particularly its reliance on quantum physics and holographic models to explain these subjective experiences, and we'll consider its lasting impact on both parapsychology and intelligence studies. Now, the first goal of McDonnell's analysis was simply to understand how the gateway experience actually works. The report compares the gateway method to other techniques like hypnosis, biofeedback, and transcendental meditation. Hypnosis, for example, works by distracting the brain's logical left hemisphere, making it easier to introduce suggestions to the non-critical right hemisphere. Transcendental meditation, on the other hand, uses intense concentration to generate acoustical standing waves. But the gateway method aims for something a bit more profound. Hemispheric synchronization, or hemisync. Hemisync uses binaural beats, basically two slightly different frequency tones played into each ear. The brain interprets this as a third imperceptible beat. When this beat matches a frequency associated with particular brain states, like theta waves for deep meditation, the brain tends to sync up with the signal, leading to synchronization between the left and right hemispheres. The report argues that this synchronization creates a focused, high-amplitude and coherent electrical brainwave output, effectively turning the human mind into a coherent oscillator. This coherence is seen as the essential prerequisite for achieving the program's deeper focus states, starting with the so-called mind-awake, body-asleep state, Focus 10, and extending to even deeper states of awareness, like Focus 12, 15, and 21. To anchor these subjective experiences in physical science, the report draws heavily on two interconnected theoretical models, the biomedical model of Itzhak Bentov and the concept of the universal hologram. First, let's look at Bentov's biomedical model. McDonnell brings in Bentov's work to explain the physiological transition needed for consciousness expansion. Bentov suggested that deep, prolonged meditation changes the rhythm of the heart, creating a low-frequency mechanical vibration that travels through the body. This, in turn, generates a standing acoustical wave inside the brain's ventricles. Vibrating at around 7 to 7.5 Hz, the theta range, this wave acts as a carrier wave that polarizes the cerebral cortex. The report goes on to say that hemisync can achieve this same physiological state more quickly and reliably than traditional meditation. Importantly, this standing wave allows the body to act as a tuned resonance system, essentially preparing it to project a highly coherent energy field, consciousness itself, beyond the physical body. Now, the most speculative and honestly significant part of the document is its use of quantum physics, especially the holographic model of the universe, to explain consciousness. Drawing on the work of physicist Carl Pribram and others, the report suggests that the universe is really a complex interacting energy system, a non-dual, four-dimensional field called the universal hologram. In this view, human consciousness is described as an intricate, oscillating energy matrix. Because a hologram is a whole contained in every part, accessing the universe's holographic energy field would, at least in theory, allow access to all the information within it, past, present, and future. That's seen as a direct justification for things like remote viewing and transcending time and space. The coherent high-amplitude energy matrix produced by hemisync is interpreted not just as an electrical signal, but as a modulated energy system capable of projecting and interacting with the universal hologram, essentially tuning the mind to different frequencies of reality. Beyond time and space, the report outlines the ultimate goals of the gateway experience, which really do go far beyond simple relaxation and healing. The higher focus levels are described as gateways to distinct zones of reality. Focus 15, known as no time, is a state of being that's outside the normal constraints of sequential time, allowing for the exploration of past or future events. Focus 21, called outer dimensions, involves moving beyond physical matter reality altogether and potentially accessing other dimensions or levels of existence. McDonnell argues that since consciousness is the source of all reality in the holographic model, highly focused thought, when projected with enough intensity, could directly influence the development of reality itself. The practical applications listed for intelligence purposes include remote viewing, which is obtaining visual, auditory, or other sensory data about distant locations or individuals. There's also information access, tapping into the universal hologram for non-local information, and personal enhancement like improving self-healing and memory retrieval. In his assessment, Lieutenant Colonel McDonnell ultimately concluded that the gateway experience was, well, plausible and potentially valuable, though admittedly a highly complex area for further research. He stated that the process provided a verifiable and functional methodology for manipulating and expanding human consciousness. The significance of the RDP 96-00788R0017-0021-0016-5 document is actually threefold. First, there's legitimization of concepts. It's a rare instance of a high-level US government analysis attempting to use rigorous physics terminology to rationalize psychic and metaphysical phenomena, and in doing so it removes much of the stigma of its so-called occult connotations. Second, it offers a framework for non-local consciousness, providing a cohesive theoretical model, the Bentov or holographic model, for understanding consciousness as an energy field interacting with reality. This gives a rationale for out-of-body experiences and remote viewing that really does extend far beyond traditional psychology. And third, its cultural impact is significant. The document's declassification in 2003 fueled public fascination and interest in the Monroe Institute's work, providing a documented link between government research and esoteric consciousness practices. The theoretical structure of the Gateway Process Report, interestingly enough, lends itself remarkably well to modern philosophical concepts of simulated reality, often framed by popular media like The Matrix. If the universe is in fact the universal hologram, an immense, complex, non-local energy grid containing all information, then it's functionally indistinguishable from a hyper-realistic, data-rich computer simulation. Consider first the idea of the physical realm as programmed reality. The report describes the physical environment, our so-called reality, as a frequency band to which our physical senses and unsynchronized brain are attuned. This aligns perfectly with the simulation hypothesis, where our consensus reality is simply a sophisticated, shared program running on a vast, energetic substrate, the universal hologram. In this sense, our bodies are the biological interface devices, receiving and interpreting a specific range of this energetic data. Next, there's hemi-sync as the code injection. In this context, the hemi-sync technique acts as a form of code injection, or a system override, by deliberately generating a highly coherent, focused output energy field, essentially conscious thought. The user is effectively bypassing the standard, limited biological interface. The synchronized brain isn't just meditating, it's performing an act of will that allows the energy matrix of consciousness to interact with the underlying structure of simulated reality. It's, well, the mental equivalent of seeing the code behind the visual front end. Then there are the focus levels as a way of exiting the simulation. The higher focus levels directly correspond to transcending the programmed constraints of the simulation. Focus 10, or mind awake, body asleep, is when the user realizes that their local interface, the body, is functionally powered down, but consciousness remains fully active. It's that moment of realizing one is not merely the avatar. Focus 15, no time, is described as being outside the constraints of sequential time, which is rather like accessing the simulation's save files or historical database. The linear nature of time, a critical constraint of the physical program, is transcended, allowing for remote viewing across the temporal axis. Focus 21, outer dimensions, represents reaching a level that's beyond physical matter reality, essentially exiting the current simulation layer and accessing the underlying server, or a higher level of the program's architecture. Finally, we come to the power of thought. McDonald's final point, that consciousness is the source of all reality, and focused thought can influence its development, is the ultimate matrix parallel. If the human energy matrix is truly a subset of the universal hologram, then achieving the coherence of hemisync grants the power to subtly or even profoundly affect the projected reality. This forms the theoretical basis for the protagonist in a simulation gaining godlike abilities, able to bend the rules of the system through sheer mental focus and will.